Michael Morpurgo. Farm boy. Farm boy. So how about we started? There's an old green foursome tractor in the back of Grandpa's barn, always covered in corn stalks. When I was very little, I used to go in there, pull off all the corn stalks, climb up, and drive it all over the farm. I'd be gone all morning, sometimes, but they always knew where to find me. I'd be plunging or drilling through or mowing anything I'd wanted. It didn't matter to me that the engine didn't work, that one of the iron wheels was missing, that I couldn't even move the steering wheel. Up on my track, it's kind of stuck. Up on my tractor, I was a farmer like my dad, like my grandpa, and I would always go all over the farm whenever I wanted. When I'd finished, I always had to put back the corn. I always had to put the corn stalks back, and cover it up. Grandpa said I had to so that it didn't get dusty. That old tractor, he said, was very important, very special. I knew that already. I discovered just how important and special it was. I come from a family of farmers going back generations and generations, but I wouldn't have known much about it if Grandpa hadn't told me. My own mother and father never seemed that interested in family roots, or maybe they just preferred not to talk about them. My mother grew up on a farm. She was the youngest of four sisters, and none of them had stayed on the farm any longer than they had to school took her away to college. College took her off to London to teaching, then to meeting my father at Tawini, and one who made no secret of his dislike for the countryside and everything to do with it. All right in the pictures, I suppose. He'd say, just as long as you don't have to smell it or walk in it, and he'd say that in the front of Grandpa too. I have always felt they were a little ashamed of Grandpa and his old-fashioned ways, and I never really understood why until recently. That is when I found out I wasn't ashamed, that it I wasn't it wasn't Grandpa I was ashamed of. I always loved going down to Devon to borrow his old turreted house at the bottom of the rutty lane. He was born there. He was He was born there. He never lived anywhere else, nor had any desire to do so. He's the only person I've ever met who seems untruly connected with his own place on earth, with the life he's lived. That's not easy to say that he never grumbles. He does about the weather, grumbles about the weather, about his television reception. He loves detective series, woundies, police dramas. He'll curse foxes when they tip over his dustbins and shout abuse at the jets when they come screaming low over the chimney pots. But he never ever complains about his lot in life. Best of all, he never pretends to be someone he isn't, and that's what more he want me to be anyone I'm not. I'm not. I like that in him. I always have. That's maybe why I've spent so many of my school holidays with him down on the farm in Devon. Sometimes he'll tell me how things were when he was young. He doesn't say things were better or worse. He just talks about of Lost. He just talks about how they were. I think it's because he loves to remember. Grandpa loves his swallows. We often watched them together as they shimp go low over the fields, and he'd shake his head in wonder. He once told me why it was his loved swallows so much. He loved swallows so much. That was when he first told me about his father, my great grandfather, or the or the corporla, as everyone in the village called him, and that's when I first heard about Joey too. Swallow's Grandpa began settling back in his chair. I knew the story. I knew for a story. No, they must have been the very first bird I've ever set eyes on, and that's funny. That is, my father. He was a lad. He he was a. Oh man, this is the hard part of getting it. He was a lad used to going around on farms seeking out all the sparrows' nests and crows' nests and rooks' nests. He'd pinch the eggs, see, and he'd get money for that for every egg in his hat. It wasn't a lot, but every penny helped. Swallows and crows and rooks. There was a terrible nuisance for farmers. They'd soon get at the corn if you let them. Anyway, father got himself into some trouble, and it was all on an account of swallows. He had he had a friend. I can't remember names, never could, but a school anyhow. And this lad he went to and robbed a swallow's nest, silly monkey, instead of a sparrow's nest. He he should have. Well, father, father gave him an awful. When he gave, well, father saw what he'd done, and he saw red. He gave him an awful linking, so the lad went home with a bleeding nose. Father went out to put the swallow's eggs back. Next thing father knows, the boy's mother comes round and boxes his ears for him, and he gets sent to bed without any tea. Not hardly fair when you think about it, is it? Anyway, putting the eggs back do didn't do no didn't do no good. Mother bird never came back. Okay, so that is going to be the end. See you guys for tomorrow for some Michael Morpurgo, and it won't be on that page. I just marked that because I'm lying. It'll be about on this page or something, page 46, because I stopped reading it here today on page 46, so might as well not be bothered to mark. So yeah, I'll still read it. I'll actually just read it. Okay, so that was it. My morpurgo farm boy. See you guys tomorrow.